Hi, welcome back. I'm now going to show you beautiful colours with Art Graf. What is Art Graf? It's not widely known as a product, but it's compressed pure pigment. It comes from Portugal, and it's basically the ochres that we use in our paint. So that's earth products, the stuff that we dig out of the earth that we create colours out of. I've got all the ochres which I'm going to show you during the demo, but I'll show you quickly here. And I've also got a red, blue and yellow compressed pigment. They're in a dry format, so to get them liquidy you add water. So there's a dry swatch of blue, and if I add water you can see I release that pigment into a fluid component like a watercolour. They're probably more like gouache paints to use, as they're a little bit opaque. So here I've got some yellow ochre, some sanguine, sepia. This is a dark brown, super dark. Now there are three blacks in here, and these are quite important. This one's a carbon black that I use, and that's what we call a pigment black. So you can mix that with any of these other colours and it darkens it. This is graphite, like pencil. It's a little bit sort of shiny and silvery, but it'll come out very like pencil, so very light grey. This is a black, a jet black, so it's a pure, deep, rich pigment that will give you even darker than that, and it's not so good for mixing with your colour. There's your yellow, your blue and a red. You use those like any primary colours, mixing them together, and here I've added the blue and the yellow to make a green, the red and the yellow to make an orange, and the blue and the red makes this beautiful mauve. So you're going to watch me. Here is actually the carbon added to that yellow, which makes another green. So you can see the carbon black makes some interesting colours too. So I'm going to use these in a dry format, so they go on a bit like a sticky pastel, and then I'm going to use water, and they zip up and put some instant colour on. So this is really about showing you the product of Art Graf. So here we go. Hi, I'm going to show you now a little demonstration based on the very top of the rock face that I've been studying. This one's got some lovely shadows in, but I'm really just going to show you how this beautiful Art Graf works. So I'm going to put it on. It's a little bit like a pastel, and you'll find it probably a little bit difficult at first to see some of the colours. It's very fine. I'm just literally putting it on quite gently, and a bit of the yellow and the sanguine there, and here I'm using a little bit of that red with some blue. So I'm using one colour over the top of one another, just bits and pieces. Then up at the top here we've got a little bit of foliage, so I'm going to use some blue. And this is another subject that I like to draw over the top with a drawing pen sometimes to bring the drawing back. So I'm spilling on colour. A little bit of blue there. Blue and yellow make green, so I'm going to put some of the yellow in there. I love this way of working because I never know what's going to happen on this crazy trip of exploring the wow factor. A little bit of the deeper red in there. Now I've got a white Art Graf as well. I'm actually going to put some white down the bottom there and on top of that red. Now I'm going to take, this is the best bit, so I'm actually going to take a spray bottle of water and I'm going to spray it, and you'll see that the colour starts to happen. It's going to go very, very tentatively at first. I've also got an old credit card, and I'm going to start to pull that colour down. Oops, sorry about this board. There we are. And I'm using my apron to wipe that clean, coming in there with the blue, Probably need a little bit more yellow in there. I don't use a brush so much with this. I'm going to add a little bit more water. I'm just going to let it drip. Why do I use a credit card? It just means that you almost mix the colour without fiddling too much with a brush. Let it do its job. I'm going to come in with a little bit more yellow at the top. And here. And you see, because it's wet, it's beautifully mixing with that blue. Now I'm going to use a little bit of that brushwork in here. I'm going to come down, I'm going to add a little bit of white in here. And you'll start to see the sort of an opacity that happens over the top, and you can start this is the secret ingredient. I'm going to let that drop down. Now I've got an alcohol spray here. It's just almost like a sort of alcohol disinfectant, and I'm going to spray it. You'll see what happens. It splits. And when it splits, I can take a rag and I start to dab it back a little bit. And that's when I start to get some of these effects. So in there, I'm going to just split up the grass. So this is an alcohol spray. And with the rag, just ragging it a little bit back. All that is sort of foliage which I'm going to add on to, just pushing that around a little bit, and all I'm doing is softening it down a little bit. I'm going to add the white in here. Water spray this time. And back with the credit card. You start to see here there's some beautiful effects happening in there, and if I bring in some of that little red here, just work a little bit in there, and then the blue quite heavily over the top, you can start to see what will happen. And I've put quite a bit more pigment in. I spray that in, and I'm just going to capture that with a little brush and start to tease it back into to create some shadow under there. Now I can go straight in with the water and pick up the colour directly. So I've just picked up some blue in here, straight onto my brush. So I'm coming straight in onto the colour themselves. So I'm adding the red this time onto the top of the blue, and you can see now it mixes very slightly differently. So you can see there's a beautiful purpley marks that are coming forward. With a brush I can control those down a little bit more, just concentrating a little bit just on the top end of this painting. Again, coming in, see it a little bit more onto that white paper. This is the shadow end of this subject. So we're going to come in with the red and the blue again. And this time I won't spray it. I'm going to use a brush. You can see the difference? A bit more controlled. If I take that brown, I'm going to load up some of the sepia onto my brush. So I've actually gone straight in onto the block with a wet brush, coming down, guiding it through, drawing it in, and then I'm going to give it another squirt there and let that bit drip down. Credit card back. Now, with the yellow, I'm coming in on the wet. Credit card down. And I'm going to add white over the top. Just that little bit of light coming in on that cliff face. The colour I haven't used is one of my favourites, so I'm going to come over here and just put a bit of this in, which is this beautiful golden ochre. Spray that in. I use this colour a lot to depict sort of light and sunlight as well. And it's a colour that's natural to the rocks. There's ochre in our rocks. Come in with the white. Softens it off. I'm going to squirt it one more time with the alcohol spray, which will split it. Let it be. I'm just going to get a rag there, just catch those. Now, I'm going to stop there. All we're looking at is colour and texture. You can start to see some beautiful things happening, particularly around here. You can use this as a very soft painting. Or what I do is I use my pen again, and it becomes another sort of pen and wash. How do I retrieve any of the whites, like the white trees? I haven't done the sky because that's just blue and white together. But I've concentrated on this area, and you can come back in with a white pen, a gel pen or an acrylic pen, and actually pick out the white stems of the trees and sort of work back on the top when it's totally dry. So there's some instant colour and a possibly new product for you, which is called Art Graf, which is one of my favourites to use. So I hope you enjoyed it, and just ask me some questions via email if you want to know some more.